laboratory here in Colorado Springs, and just with the simplest of tools, I can show them what is occurring. With these low-frequency electromagnetic fields, because they do get into our body. They penetrate our body. They oscillate our molecules. They develop false heat in our body. Our body switches on.
Yeah, we're literally being cooked at low level.
Yeah, we're being cooked, and at the same time, we're strangling ourselves. We're flooding our systems with platelets and antigens and so forth, trying to fight a ghost that doesn't exist, or a disease that doesn't exist. It's only a magnetic field, if you know what I mean.
All right, well, it would make some sense to me that if electrical fields can cause cancer, maybe there is some manipulation of them that might cure it as well. Did he do any work in those areas?
Yes, he developed resonant frequencies, and what we find is that we can take a variety of different cancers, and they do have a resonant frequency. And how you deal with them is you deal with them with a mortelic frequency. You put it the same frequency, you elevate it, you overpower it, and what happens is the cell itself is destroyed, leaving intact the sublubrious tissue that connects with it. But
so you're suggesting you can find the frequency, for example, of a tumor cellular material and radiate that frequency and destroy the tumor while not destroying adjacent healthy
That's exactly what
tissue?
I'm saying. There's an outfit in Florida that's working on it right now. They're called Geraldo International, and I believe they're on the stock market.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Unfortunately, they couldn't carry out their test in this country.
Naturally.
They're doing them over in Belgium at the request of the king over there, or the queen, whatever it is. But they want to get this technology, and we stifle it so many times. You know, when people are in these dilemmas where they don't have a choice, I mean, tomorrow may not come, so why don't you let them try it? But we find people that are withholding technology under the premise that it could have long-term degenerative effect. Well, if you're not alive, you're not going to worry about that long-term thing. And often what we're demonstrating is that these people that are on the alternative rim, these people that have been told they're cuckoo, that they just might have something, and that even the most critical disease can be dealt with an alternative approach that goes into our diet, into our supplements, and in the around us. And I myself am an advocate of a resonant frequency that would destroy the cancer cell. And there are people out there doing it, and it is something that will be released. I don't know how much longer they can hold the technology back. It's just one of a number of them that are available to us. And you know, I think the cure or control of cancer is about as important as anything. Cancer has torn apart more homes than anything that you can think of.
It surely is true. And
it's cost us as taxpayers enormously because they're not all insured, and often these people they run out of insurance, and then we as taxpayers pick it up. In charity cases, we have no choice.
Well, present radiation and chemotherapy that is used to fight cancer is a real blunderbuss technology. It does indeed do a job against cancerous cells, but frequently it does a job, of course, against the healthy cells as well.
So out the immune system?
That's right. So anything that would focus specifically on a particular cellular material would be incredibly helpful.
Well, I agree with you there, and I feel that they continually repeat a failure. They continue to go along with this chemotherapy, and then they're using these high doses of radiation that are going to leave the prospective patient worse than they were when they went in. I would just as soon die a pleasant death, I'll I'll just take my time and see how long I last.
Well, I don't know. Given a choice of that technology or nothing at all, I might opt for that technology. All right,
well,
please, here's yet another one. Please ask your guess.
Okay.
If Tesla dealt with what today is being called subtle energy, that is, energies that exist within space and time, but not limited by space and time. Now, I'm not sure I know what that means.
Well, Art, you're talking about somebody that when they're talking about subtle, they're almost talking what we would call spiritual. The ability to inflict your will at great distances with no power at all, just your wish to have something done, and it's done. This is something that is innate in human beings, all human beings. And it's the very wise human being that finally learns how to capture this ability and to use it profitably or positively. But it is a force that is just as important as an atomic bomb. Subtle it may be, but nonetheless it grows into a hurricane just as much as the butterfly flapping its wing, and then just through propagation it causes a hurricane.
Control, you're suggesting, of another's mind at a great distance?
Yes, even that. The first thing that I think we have to take into account is just how complex our minds are.
Let me understand. You were actually talking about controlling some material object at a great distance, an actual physical control, Mr. McGinnis?
It goes into all fields, not only, physical beings and controlling that, but also controlling thoughts. And they talk about these, I guess you would call them phase conjugate beams. We could talk about scalar waves, that the waves in themselves are harmless until they get to where they cross.
First of all, what is a scalar wave? I've heard a lot of people refer to scalar waves. What are they?
It's one of these real hard things to define, because for years and years people were even saying they didn't exist, and you're talking to somebody who felt that way. This is a wave that is so subtle. You don't see it, but you cannot hide from it. It'll go through any metal. It'll go through anything. And it'll arrive at any, predisposed place that you want to send it.
What is the form of energy, Mr. McGinnis?
Well, let me tell you my experience. That changed my mind, because I harped on this, and I said, hey, this is, I feel people are just getting a little carried away. In fact, I was very critical of Tom Bearden, who first wrote about it. But I was in Tucson, Arizona. I was at their auditorium there, and I was giving a lecture. And then following the lecture, I had this fellow that just, he just kept asking me to sit down and listen to him. And I was almost annoyed with him. And he said, "Well, damn it," he said, "what do I have to do to get your attention?" And I asked him if he was a member, and he became a member immediately. And then he showed me this device, Art. It was about the size of a cigar box.
Hold it. This is a good hook. We're going to hold you right there. We're at the bottom of the hour. This object was the size of a cigar box, he said. But what was in the box? This is how we hold you through the breaks. And here comes one right now. You're listening to Dreamland. This is CBC.
Was recorded for rebroadcast at this time. Please do not call.
From the Kingdom of Nye, this is Dreamland with Art Bell on the CBC Radio Network.
Yes, it is. Good morning, everybody. My guest is J.W. McGinnis. He is president of the International Tesla Society. Follows the work of Nikola Tesla and beyond, I might add. We'll learn more about that. The story of what's in the box, though, is coming up in just a moment, as well as much more. And we will begin taking calls. So when I give out the numbers here in a moment, sit up and pay attention. Before they string me up, Mr. McGinnis, what was in that box?
Well, the box had two items in it. One of them was a little holder for a 9-volt battery. You've seen those before.
Of course.
And then he also had a small little wand device that had a caduceus coil on it. to help you with that, if you can think of that emblem for medicine.
Of course.
Stakes going up.
Yes.
They crisscross each other.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, this is a caduceus coil. This was in there. And then in one half of this box was an area that was squared off, and right in the middle of it was a small Mobius strip. This is a stranded wire. One circle of it was right there, and it had next to it a couple of switches, for there were 3 settings, as well as one switch that seemed to act as some sort of an attenuator.
Okay.
So the fellow asked me, he says, well, I'll tell you what you do. He said, it doesn't work for everybody. He said, but for most people it'll work. If you put your finger into the central part of where that Mobius strip is, and then carefully, very slowly, start to attenuate it with that one knob, you will get a sensation. Well, I did that, and I turned it, and suddenly I got this feeling, went through my body like if you've ever had your crazy bone struck.
Sure.
Well, this was the whole body from top to bottom was just resonating like you couldn't believe, and I jerked my finger out immediately. I couldn't believe that.
I'm sure.
And then these sensations, they declined very slowly, but after about 15 minutes, my lips were still numb. They were still tingling.
That's weird. I'm sure you had a few choice words for this fellow.
Well, what I did next is, because I was curious, I said, well, how far can this operate from? And he says, well, once attenuated to your circuit, there really isn't any distance. So I'm at this auditorium, and way down at the end of this hallway is a big ice machine, a Pepsi machine, and a Coca-Cola machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told him what I was going to do is I was going to go all the way down there, and this caduceus coil, this was meant to be used as so that you could give it direction. So it would only go exactly where this here was pointed. And so he plugged that in, and I went way down to the other end of the hallway, and I got behind these 3 machines. And I felt this thing go right across my body, just, starting from my one shoulder as it went over to the other. I could just feel the whole thing, and I got weak all over. It scared the life out of me because I started to think that if the government had something like this here, and I do believe they do have this type of equipment, there's virtually there's nothing a human can do to resist anything that somebody would want to put you through.
Well, now, wait a minute. What happened to this guy? Where is he?
Well, this is what happened to him. I was impressed, and as I said before, I travel around the country and I get to these different areas, and always somebody out of nowhere. Well, this guy shows up, and I knew I had to see him again, and I had his address and so forth. So I arranged for another fellow to go down and visit and try and get this technology, and this fellow went down there, and this guy lived about 70 miles out in the desert from Tucson, Arizona. I mean, he was way out there in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
And when my associate arrived there, he spent a whole day with him trying to get him to repeat this or to explain this phenomenon. And this guy was very tight-lipped about it. And then after that, the guy goes back for the second day. By that time, he was really interested to know what was going on. And it was at that point that this fellow admitted that he himself didn't make this device, that this party that lived about 5 miles away from him, another isolated group, had made this device. So he goes over to the other place, and they were very reluctant to give any information out about it. And they have remained mum about it. They did not want to share it with anybody. But I can tell you this much, it worked, and any time from now on that somebody asks me about a scalar wave, I, from personal experience, can tell you.
Okay, he represented that with scalar wave?
Yes.
Wow.
And this thing was just totally overpowering. And keep in mind now that this thing was, the power basis for this was just a little
9-volt battery. I've got you. All right, look, we've got to get to the phones. Let me quickly give out the phone numbers, and away we go. If you have a question for Mr. McGinnis, J.W. McGinnis, president of the International Tesla Society, come now. First-time callers, area code 702-727-1222. I wonder if we could go down there and find those people. The wild card line is area code 702-727-1295. Toll-free, west of the Rockies, it's 800-618-8255. East of the Rockies, 800-825-5033. Again, east of the Rockies, 1-800-825-5033. Once again, Mr. McGinnis. Mr. McGinnis, are you ready?
I am.
All right, here we go. East of the Rockies, good evening. You're on Dreamland with Mr. J.W. McGinnis. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi, how you doing? I'm listening to your show.
Where are you calling from, sir?
Ohio.
Ohio, all right.
Yeah. I had a friend who made me a Lokowski MWO oscillator.
Yes.
And I had severe allergies all my life. I've been to the doctorologist and hundreds and hundreds of dollars in shots and that, but nothing cured it. But this machine, I used it, the frequencies, and my allergies are completely.
Huh.
And
how was it applied?
I have 2 antennas, circular antennas, and I just sit between the antennas.
Now, that's remarkable. Have you ever heard of anything like that? Or is that Tesla technology, Mr.
Well,
McGinnis?
it is basically Tesla technology, but it was brought forth by George Lahovsky, a great Russian scientist. I'm trying to think of some period, but it was early 1900s or late 1800s when it was first introduced. But that device itself, I use it myself. I have one that I suspend over my bed. It's not charged with any exterior electricity at all. I'm just using the magnetic field coming off of the Earth itself. And I use it rarely, but when those times arrive when I'm really low on energy and I just can't seem to go or anything else like that, I'll hang that over my head and I'll be up, 2 hours earlier than what I...
No offense, Mr. McGinnis, but, this sounds a little like the kind of thing the FDA agents usually rush in and raid and haul away and call the people quacks. I've seen these kinds of things.
Well, this is a device that they certainly wouldn't raid because it isn't powered with anything, number one. But number two...
Not even a 9-volt battery, huh?
No, it has no power at all. So, you can look at it as something as an aesthetic piece. I didn't have much faith in it at first when it was given to me, and then I finally decided to use it. And the thing that I noticed about it was a big increase in energy, but I did notice that after I had been using it for like a week or so, that I was over-energetic, and I was just at a hyperactive. So
really,
I only use it now when I'm really drug out and ready to be put to bed. Then I'll put that thing over my bed, and I will get rejuvenated extremely fast with it. And
well, that's remarkable. Let's keep moving here. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with J.W. McGinnis. Hi.
Hi, Art. Hi, Jay.
Hi, how you doing?
Where are you calling from, sir?
I'm calling from San Jose, California.
Okay.
And listening to you through 1120 in Oregon. I forget the call letters.
KPMW.
Okay. 2 questions. Number one, I've read in the Tesla's biography, A Man Out of Time, by Margaret Cheney. Are you familiar with that, Jay?
Yes, I am.
Great book, and I've read it a couple of times. In that book, it says that Tesla... I believe he had contacted people from not of this earth, so to speak.
No, he felt he had contacted or had contact with people from Mars. And it's a very interesting story about Mars because Tesla was sure that he had received some signal from Mars. And of late there seems to be an extraordinary amount of information about Mars. But in researching the whole topic and going back to when Tesla was first talking about making communication with intelligent life, on a different planet, there was this French Astronomical Society. These here were all of these people that, focused on nothing but the heavens themselves, and they put up a $100,000 reward for the first person, or 100,000 franc reward, for the first person to contact somebody from another planet that had intelligent life. Now, there were a series of scientists that had all picked out different planets, and no planet was picked or selected outside of Mars except by Tesla himself. And that planet was deliberately eliminated from the competition. In other words, You could make intelligent life connection with anybody in the
except
in our
Mars.
galaxy, but if it came from Mars, you wouldn't get the money. No.
Now, how could they? Now, how could they accept Mars?
Well, I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And in reading some of the old literature that I have had here, that was one of the things that struck me as kind of, well, here's an organization that, for one reason or another, doesn't want to give Tesla one chance in heck to collect on the $100,000.
Interesting. Richard Hoagland has done a lot of research with regard to the monuments.
Well, the
of
monuments
Mars.
on Mars, the face on Mars. And
yes.
As a matter of fact, I have a fairly good connection with those people at the Goddard Space Flight Center and some of the other places, and there seems to be a lot of artifact up there that would lead one to believe that, yes, indeed, at one time or another, there was intelligent life on that planet, and
That's right.
possibly, just maybe possibly, and I could get into that scenario later, perhaps those people that were there are actually us that are here. And I'll let you think about that one for a little bit. But
do you have any information as well on the moon? There's really something interesting going on right now. After the U.S. went to the moon, and we have studied it to death, and, the general feeling was it's nothing but a big rock, and not even a special rock at that. For a decade, we've been more or less
totally false.
Disinterested in the moon, and now all of a sudden we're sending probes to the moon. There's just a new moon probe announced. We're sending up space shuttles that are focusing telescopes on the moon. What the hell's going on the moon?
Well, there's quite a few things that are going on there, Art, but from several different angles. First off, some of the early photography that was released from the different vehicles that circumvented or went around the moon
Yes.
and so forth.
Yes.
There are some items that have shown up on the photography that they cannot explain, and in
That's
one
right.
of the earlier books, and Art, I've forgotten the name of it right offhand, but it had something to do with anomalies on the moon.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But this thing was published before NASA had a chance to cover their tracks, but when it went back to the publisher to be reprinted, those that had caused this controversy are no longer available through that book. But I will also...
You mean,
look that up again
are you saying the photographs that caused the controversy?
Well, one of them looked like a tracked vehicle had gone up and through this one crater that was there. There were other figures there that could have been, and I say could have been, areas where people had shelter, Quonset huts or some other type of building.
Buildings, indeed.
That people had somehow found a way to get into the soil and had constructed some buildings where they evidently were safe from the environment outside. But this was picked up with some of this early photography, and now it isn't available anymore, but I think I've got one of the original books.
Oh, no, you're right. Richard Hoagland has had much the very same thing to say, that a number of the photographs that were available now are not available.
That's only one side of the coin, but the other side of the coin deals with energy. You see, the moon itself is actually, if we were going to have free energy tomorrow, we could have it easy enough. We've been to the moon before. We can return there again. The job isn't that big, but what we need to do is to harvest this helium-3 that is constantly being embedded into the soil of the planet. What we need to do is to first situate a couple of ovens there that can cook out that helium-3. Once it's cooked out and in a gaseous form, if it's put onto a vehicle, just a vehicle the size of the space shuttle as an example, if we just brought that back, that cargo bay full of helium-3, this would give us all we would need for safe, fusionable energy for 1 year for this whole country.
Wow.
Because using this helium-3 is a big sidestep that we don't have to take if we have to rely on the technology that we have here earthbound.
All right. We've got a lot of people wanting to get in. I've got to pay attention to them. On the wildcard line, you're on the air with J.W. McGinnis. Hi.
Good evening, Art. Good evening, Mr. McGinnis. This is Greg Mountain Home.
From Mountain Home, Idaho?
You bet.
All right.
It's been a while. Mr. McGinnis, in the area of energy and production of energy by the Earth, I was wondering if you've been following any of the research that's being done that they talk about. When I was living in Alaska, apparently 2 years ago, Senator Stevens got a large appropriation for about $25 million to buy a Cray supercomputer for the University of Fairbanks. And they were studying, there's an Asian professor up there by the name of Dr. Noguchi or something like that that's been studying the possibility of extracting energy from the aurora borealis. Have you been following that at all?
Well, I have been in that particular subject. Covers a lot of area. It goes right into HAARP. But basically what they're talking about here when you're seeing those northern lights, this is all cosmic energy that is coming into the Earth. You see what happens when the sun is radiating all of this energy. Much of it is being obfuscated by the magnetic field of the Earth itself. But when we get to those areas where the poles are, that's where this cosmic energy can then enter into, which it does, and then it is swept up. Now, what these are electrons with no nucleus, so they're very free-flowing. And when you look at those aurora borealis, aurora borealis, at any rate, what you're looking at is tremendous amounts of energy that are just lying there and could be harvested. I don't think we have to take those dramatic steps to do it. I think there's enough energy that can be extracted from the Earth, and the man who told us how to do it was Nikola Tesla, and this is part of the information that is still being withheld from us on Nikola Tesla and how he had devised this plan so that anybody, no matter where you were at, could draw out as much electricity as what you would need right from the planet itself.
Can you discuss HAARP?
Well, we're talking about HAARP, but not to get into that specifically. I'd rather reserve that for just HAARP.
Well, okay, but briefly, we have quite a bit of information about Project HAARP, Mr. McGinnis, and we've been sort of following it. We received information that it is a kind of a two-part project. Part one would attempt to affect the ionosphere by discharging large amounts of RF energy into the ionosphere, and part two was an attempt to map the inside of the Earth. Now, is that your understanding?
Well, that's only part of it. Some of it was in controlling the communication ability and then filtering out just exactly who we want to give communication access to.
In other words, saturating in some way the ionosphere?
Well, exactly what happens is there's a number of transmitters there. I don't know if it's 3 or 4 or 5. But what they want to do is to attack these energized ions that have been the byproduct of some previous nuclear explosions that we've carried out in the...
All right, I'm sorry, but we're at the top of the hour. We're going to come back and jump right into this, believe me. Project HAARP, and we're going to ask about that. Anybody fooling with our ionosphere and our ability to communicate, we need to talk about that a little bit. We'll be right back. This is CBC.
Resonance, and we can allow that resonance to propagate. It gets stronger and stronger. It can become an immense force both for energy and transportation and destruction.
So you're saying we may be doing these things not knowing what we're exactly doing?
Right.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. We've got to get back to the lines here. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with J.W. McGinnis. Hello.
Hi, Art. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for making it. Where are you?
St. Louis.
St. Louis, okay.
When he was saying before about they had a contest a long time ago to see who'd be the first one to contact a planet, but they ruled out Mars.
Yes.
You know why they did that? It's because they thought Mars would be too easy. Remember, that was when they were doing the things with, what's his name, with the telescope when he was drawing the canals. He thought he was seeing canals, so they all thought there was life on Mars, so let's see if we can find it anywhere else and like that.
Oh, I see.
Well, okay.
That sounds about right, though, doesn't it?
Well, it does sound about right. I don't exactly agree that Mars was the easiest one to contact. My goodness, at that particular time, the planet that people were really focused on was Venus, which was the morning and evening star, and still is at certain times of the year. But Venus was getting far more attention than what Mars was at the given time.
Venus is easy. I got a guy down the street here who says he's from Venus. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with J.W. McGinnis. Hello.
Yes. Good morning, Art, or evening. Yes, I have a question to ask, gentlemen.
Oh, that's fine. Where are you?
I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
All right.
My name's Ed.
Yes, Ed.
And also, I'm an engineer. I'm in the technical. I never could understand why there was so much animosity between the Edison and Tesla. There was just so much hatred and dislike.
Well,
And I could never understand that.
Which apparently is still going on today in some ways. Why all the animosity?
Well, let me tell you, when Tesla came to this country, it was his biggest ambition to go to work for Thomas Edison. He had a letter of introduction from Edison's manager in Paris, where he had already worked on Edison's dynamos and made them much more efficient. He comes to this country. Edison had kept him waiting for a week, and I don't have any bone to pick about that. But then when he finally did meet Tesla, he read the letter from his manager, which said, I'm paraphrasing, Dear Mr. Edison, this is Nikola Tesla, a man like you, that can change the destiny of man. And when Edison is looking at Tesla, here's a guy just 30 years old, and he had already encompassed the world with his ingenuity, a lot of it unjustly, by the way, but at any course, he reads this letter and cannot believe that his own manager was saying this guy could change the destiny of man. And so he looked at Tesla and said, if I was to hire you, just what would you do for me? And Tesla said, the first thing I would do is to make your DC dynamos much more efficient, your DC generators much more efficient. When he said that to Edison, he was actually slapping him in the face because the thing in engineering, as well as all other parts of life, is its concept.
Oh, it's true.
And what was happening with Edison, he had seen his DC generators, and when these were in operation, they were throwing sparks all over the place. When Edison was looking at it, he was going, look at the enormous power here. We got sparks flying all over. But as Tesla looked at it, he saw it as wasting all of this energy in spark, and the spark should be converted to energy. So we knew that where Edison had his Achilles heel, it was in that DC generator. He went about to work on it. After about 2 years, he had it finished. He had finished actually 26 different models of Edison's generators, put them on the table, and Edison had thanked him for doing this revision on them and making them much more saleable.
But the bottom line answer, for the sake of brevity, is professional jealousy. No,
it wasn't that. What happened was, and I forgot, I neglected to tell you this, is Edison was so sure of his dynamos that he had told Tesla, he said, if you can make these more efficient, I'll give you $50,000.
Ah, money.
So then Tesla said, I appreciate you thanking me for improving the dynamos here, but...
Well, where's my 50?
Where's the 50? And Edison looked at him and said, the problem with you, Tesla, is you foreigners don't understand American humor. I was only kidding
yeah,
about
right.
50,000.
Only kidding, huh?
And Tesla quit him immediately and went to work for the New York subway system. But what I want to do is to bring up a little context here. I have talked to the man that does the promotions for the Edison Foundation, a fellow by the name of Charles Hummel. And I had talked to him about this issue, and he said, JW, you're out of context when you think there's a lot of hate between these two men. He said, you told me about the concept about the motor. I'm telling you about the concept of hate. He said, it doesn't exist. And then produced a letter for me between Edison and Tesla. It was an invitation for Tesla to go to Edison's daughter's wedding, and it was a very warm and sincere type of letter, which leads me to believe that perhaps they were the strongest of rivals at
perhaps
some time or another.
JW, we've got a break here at the bottom of the hour.
Okay.
Did Tesla have anything to do with weather changes?
Well, that's what HARP is destined to do.
There's a good hook. Stay right there. All the rest of you, stay right there, and we'll be right back. Find out about the weather. This is CBC.
This hour of Art Bell was recorded for rebroadcast at this time. Please do not call.
From the Kingdom of Nye, we continue with your calls on Dreamland with Art Bell. Call Art now toll-free at 1-800-618-8255. 1-800-618-TALK. First-time callers, area code 702-727-1222. 702-727.
Yes, like HARP. As early as 1962, I want you to know, at that time, the leading astronomers on this planet We're protesting strongly against the irresponsibility of these experiments.
Should we be trying to get Project HARP stopped?
Well, I think it's time that everybody should contact their local representatives. I know I have. I know many of our members have. And as we travel around the country and we lecture on this, Steve Ellswick, who is a true expert in this area, is focusing on it. And we have to do something about this rampant government frenzy that they'll step into these areas where they should not, because the dangers of this whole thing, I mean, this is word from the leading American scientists of the day, and what they said is that it will take many hundreds of years to understand the Van Allen radiation belts, and before they'll even restabilize at their normal levels, because already as many as atomic bombs as what we've thrown up there, the Soviets have done the same. You know, that's the way it works. We blow off one, they're going to blow off one.
That's right.
And they have. So they've got the whole thing up there pretty cluttered, and now what they want to do is to heat it up. And they want to heat it up with this HARP system. It's supposedly a government ionospheric study, but as benign as it may seem, it offers so much more other potential. What's being constructed is the world's largest ionosphere heater. And what we're talking about is burning 30-mile diameter holes into the atmosphere. And during this operation, the electromagnetic interference is so intense that pilots now, they've already been warned to learn how to deal with these periods of time when their instrumentation will be disrupted. Furthermore, the emissions are so strong that the facility itself has to be in a very remote area.
Mr. McGinnis, do you know what frequency ranges will be disrupted?
I know that our researcher has that art. I wish I had that information in front of me. I know it's going to be in our article, and I haven't had a chance to read the article myself yet. But
I wonder about the shortwave spectrum.
I'm sure it's going to be included.
All right, we're going to have to do another show and get into this. Sounds like you could do a whole show on that. Here's a fact. Very kind of interesting, and I want to know what you think of it. Hi, Art. Some time ago, around 1985, myself and my brother found something in a small storage room in the mountains. This, by the way, comes from Montana. The room, we thought at the time, looked just like a radio or maybe a TV relay station. But as we approached the area, we could hear a kind of high-pitched frequency, for lack of a better word. We kicked the door open, that's called trespassing, by the way, and got inside. We found several little probes that were attached to a dish pointing east, I believe. Being the curious types, we touched several things in this room and experienced a feeling much like what your guest described, and my lips and soft palate in my mouth were numb for about 2 hours, length of time we took to ride back home. About a week after this, several of our neighbors said they received visits from men in dark blue cars asking about the property that this station is located on. Things like who has access to the area and who the other people in the area are. It was weird, and I've never thought about it till now. Thanks. And he's a ham radio operator, as am I, in Billings, Montana. What do you think they found?
Well, I'll tell you, they could have easily have found some sort of transmitting device that may have been working. The idea that intrigues me is that it did have a probe on it, did have some directional quality to it, and then when they say they have intercepted that wave, they're experiencing what I've experienced.
Exactly.
Could be some early work in that field, Art.
And then, you know, very interesting. You got guys in blue suits. They don't move for small reasons, you know.
No, and they do show up at the most inopportune times. I've had literally hundreds of stories of people that have had these so-called calls where they've been so-called warned not to, elucidate on what they're doing, or they've been told to get out of the business if they're in, something like medicine or energy or something that might do us all some good, by the way.
All right. We've got to move quick. We don't have a lot of time. Here's another one. Did Tesla have any involvement with the Philadelphia experiment or Montauk in New York?
Well, I'm going to tell you the information as I know it. The specific experiment that occurred in 1943, no, he didn't have any relationship to it. He did demonstrate his technology, what we call radar invisibility.
Yes.
In 1933, off of the coast of New Jersey, there was a shallow inlet, and in this inlet, he positioned two large coils on each side of the inlet, and then got from the Navy a small admiral's barge or a small boat. It was like about 65 feet long. Now, 5 miles off of the coast, they set up a radar picket ship to do a sweep to pick up the craft if they could pick it up, which they did. And then they energized these two large coils, and this was the beginning of what I feel is the Philadelphia experience, because they activated the coils. They tried to pick the ship up by radar. It did not show up.
Yes.
Because of the interference, but the strange part of it is the ship disappears and never sees daylight again.
I'll tell you, I've had the technology involved with the Philadelphia experiment explained to me, and a lot of it sounds like Tesla technology.
Well, anything that is dealing, Art, when we talk about death, we're always talking about, the higher realm. We're always going up. We're always going up. And the feeling that I have from some people is that perhaps, what happens with us when we do move on is that we move into a much higher frequency realm, and therefore we might be sensitive to these higher frequencies, and we might be able to do things with these higher frequencies that we don't really realize we know enough about.
Mr. McGinnis, called by some another dimension?
Yes, that would be the best way to relay it. And I think people can pass in and out of these. And I think, although I'm not in any kind of mood to let you think that I go to channelers or anything else, I do believe that these people that have these strange stories that I'm reluctant to accept, they should be given a voice and they should be heard. They might have something there that...
Well, that also is my feeling. That's why we have this program, Mr. McGinnis. On east of the Rockies, you're on the air with J.W. McGinnis. Good evening.
Yes, Art. This is Mark calling from Collinsville, Illinois.
Yes, Mark.
KSD.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm listening to you on my car radio, and I'm getting a real faint signal. And Mr. McGinnis is a great guest. Is there any chance you're on a audio satellite I could possibly pick up?
Yes, of course. Telstar 302, transponder 15, 6.2 wideband audio.
What was the last?
6.2.
I'm in business.
You're in business.
Thanks, buddy.
You bet. Take care. Sorry you didn't get it earlier. On the first-time caller line, you're on the air with J.W. McGinnis. Hi.
Hi there. I have a question. This sounds kind of mundane, but this is Scott calling from Seattle, KVI.
Yes, Scott.
What's the form of that natural energy that Mr. McGinnis spoke of earlier?
Natural energy. Oh, you mean the positive ions. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, he was speaking of some of the natural energy that Tesla was purported to have researched were by...
Okay, well, that's right. I asked the same exact question, and to that there is not really an answer, is there?
When we're talking about natural energy, we're talking about the energy withheld, or within the Earth itself. And there's plenty of energy in there, earthquakes alone, volcanoes, etc. But even on the exterior of this planet, one of the things that we like to observe are these large energy discharges. We call it lightning. And lightning actually works with the Earth in reciprocating this power back and forth between the exterior and the interior.
Makes sense.
But to give you the immensity of this lightning, at 1 inch of spark at sea level is equivalent to about 12,500 volts. Now, in excess of 100,000 feet, it's a humongous amount of power to get spark 1 inch. But our space shuttle observed a...
Thank you. I was just about to ask you about this. Now, this was energy, was it not, that was actually shooting into space?
Well, right. This magnetic field of ours, it can go both ways, but it is an enormous amount of vital energy that we have all around us. But I was just talking about this one charge over 100 miles long. If you're figuring that at 1 inch in excess of 80,000 feet being equivalent to maybe 500,000 volts, imagine what a 101 mile long strike would be equivalent to.
Right.
And this is energy that strikes the Earth, And the Earth responds to it when it strikes the planet itself. We have an exchange of this energy. That's why Tesla knew that there's no reason for us to have any qualms about energy, and it ought to be good, clean electricity is what it ought to be.
Of course, there's always the problem of how you convert instantly discharged large amounts of energy to usable stored energy.
Well, that's where our planet comes in, because the planet itself is one huge capacitor.
Mm-hmm.
It's holding on to all of these charges, and it's reluctantly giving up that charge. But if we had Tesla's technology, we could unlock those secrets. We could get it out with not much of a problem at all, from what I can determine.
Poetically, you could suggest the planet overfloweth with energy. And when it does, it discharges in ways that we've now verified with the space shuttle.
Oh, yeah. It's one of the greatest observing pieces of equipment they ever came up with, and it's one thing where I don't mind putting my tax dollar. It's paid for itself, for sure.
All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with J.W. McGinnis. Good evening.
Yes.
Turn your radio off, number one.
Yes.
And number two, tell us where you're calling from.
St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Am I talking to him now?
Yes, you are.
Oh, okay. I'm been curious for quite a while. You were talking earlier about mind control.
Yes.
I'm very suspicious of paranoid schizophrenias. I've had a feeling for a long time that it's experimental purpose, that they're doing with people. I have a son who's paranoid schizophrenia, and he talks about things, and he's told me things that I've heard of before I ever heard of you speak about them on the radios.
Yes, all right. Well, that's, in other words, people who are diagnosed as paranoid schizophrenic, is it possible, Mr. McGinnis, that some of them are simply being affected by some of what we've been talking about this morning?
They could very well be a victim of somebody who, through some benign reason would do that. But also they could be affected by the electrical fields that they're living in on a day-to-day basis could be exasperating a poor situation. We're electric from stem to toe, and
yes, sir.
We are going to respond to these electrical and magnetic charges, and I think the first place that ought to be examined is, first of all, the environment. Are they living in an area where there's an unusual amount of electrical activity, because that could be affecting them as well as
anything else.
That'd be
a very interesting study, as a matter of fact. On the wildcard line, you're on the air with J.W. McGinnis. Good evening.
Good evening. This is Fritz calling from Phoenix.
Yes, Fritz.
Jay, what is the association with J.P. Morgan, who was supposed to finance some of the research and then pull the carpet out of Tesla? I mean, he sort of double-crossed him.
Okay, well, he didn't really double-cross him. What happened is this. J.P. Morgan had financed Tesla's Niagara Falls system, the greatest electrical power transmission system in the world. Later on, when Tesla wanted to bring forth the wireless transmission of electricity, now this guy was not much of a businessman. I got to tell you, Tesla didn't really do it right there, because he was always spending his own money instead of other people's money, like most people do. But in the course of developing his wireless transmission system, he ran out of money. He asked for a loan from Morgan. Morgan evaluated his technology, and after about a week or so had told Tesla, look, it's great, something I'd be interested in, but there's one thing I don't see here. I don't see where you put the meters, so when people use this power, they pay for it. And at that point, Tesla saying, well, you give the people the power. When Tesla said that,
of course,
it dried up, but Tesla never took no for an answer, and he did go back in a short period thereafter, and he put a stack of technology down on J.P. Morgan's desk, and this technology was heating units, cooling units, electric airplanes, electric cars, all sorts of technology. And I told J.P. that he would give him one half of the royalties if he could only get another couple of $100,000. J.P. Morgan, having everybody on hook, west of Niagara Falls to Chicago and south to the tip of Florida, was very reluctant to give up that power, and so he turned them down. It was a business decision, but there is some other skullduggery that occurred.
Well, that's a classic question. Where do we put the meter? What? No meter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. All right, we're very nearly out of time, and the phones are going wild. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with J.W. McGinnis. Where are you calling from, please?
From Montana.
Montana. All right. Quickly, your question.
My question was, did Tesla do experiments on mind reading, detecting another person's thoughts?
Instead of affecting them, Mr. McGinnis.
Well, he did feel that we were all connected one way or another mentally. Worldwide, all species are connected. And if I don't feel good, you don't feel good. Or if you, compose enough negative activities, it's going to have an effect on everybody. So it wasn't really mind reading as much as coupling. Getting on to a level where everybody is striving to make life more tolerable for everybody else.
All right, we're way out of time here. Let me give you an opportunity once more to give out your telephone number and address and what you've got there.
Okay.
So go ahead.
All right. Our information packet is free. You can call 800-397. It didn't work. I'm not so sure that they didn't do it themselves, but I think that they had a lot of input from some other people that when they step back from them, they're missing a part of the puzzle. The puzzle is, can we do cold fusion? Answer is yes. Are these the men that are going to do it? Answer is questionable.
Questionable. All right, Ms. McGinnis, you have been a wonderful guest. There was not enough time. We will have you back again. Be assured of it. Okay. Good luck with your telephones.
Okay, and thanks again, Art. We really appreciate it, and good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody is right, and I will give out Mr. McGinnis's number one more time. It is 1-800-397-0137. 1-800-379-0137. 1-800-379-0137. To get